Malachi Ashores Shalom Aleichem Malachi Ashores Malachi Elyoy Mimele Malchi Hamlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shalom Aleichem Malachi Ashores Malachi Elyoy Mimele Malchi Hamlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shalom Aleichem Malachi Ashores Malachi Elyoy.
We'll be starting in a moment. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our review of this week's Torah reading. Today we have actually two Torah readings that we're going to review because this week is a double Torah reading as well. It's the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah, and as you know, it is all correlated, connected, as everything that happens in the Torah and everything that happens in Judaism is connected and related. This week's Torah reading begins as Moshe introduces the Jewish people, the Torah reading of Nitzavim. And I want to begin by mentioning that today is 9/11, and today's class is in memory of those who perished during that terrible day so many years ago, 19 years ago, on 9/11. As we begin this week's class, as we mentioned in this week's Torah reading begins with Moshe telling the Jewish people as they all stand here today, listening and witnessing a covenant that God brings them and expects every single Jew to be part of, even those that are not here today. A covenant that we will accept. As we accept God's will, so too does God also. Not only does he see how we accept God's will, but he also accepts and realizes his responsibility towards us. However, Moshe reminds the Jewish people that as they enter the land of Israel, it's very easy for a person to convince themselves and say, you know what, life is good the way it is. Why should I change? Why should I follow what God has to say? There are so many evil people out there that do things that are against God's will, and they're doing perfectly fine. Why then should any of us follow? And Moshe explains to the Jewish people and saying, yes, they may seem like they're enjoying life, but it will come a time that they will be destroyed like the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. And there will come a time where those who seemingly were enjoying the pleasures of life were only just that. Pleasures of a materialistic external life and nothing of meaning. And therefore Moshe reminds the Jewish people, not always and never will we understand God's ways. However, we as a people have a responsibility to follow God's commandments because we see what is in front of our eyes, the importance of how we should follow, what we should do, and where we should be. With that, Moshe continues to tell the Jewish people that there will come a time, regardless of what you see of the atrocities and the terrible times that are happening, you will see a time where things will change, things will rebound. Not only that, there's a time of the coming of Mashiach where God will select every single Jew from every single part of the universe and bring them together to the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael. That Moshe uses the terminology, even if you're going to be out there, who knows where, God is going to single-handedly collect you and bring you together as we bring the Jewish people together in the time of the coming of Mashiach, where all Jews will reunite and come together to the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael. And then we will see the absolute purity in spirituality. Today we are a body and a soul together, fused together, and the body has temptations while the soul has temptations, and sometimes the soul wins and sometimes the body wins. However, when the time, everybody will reach absolute perfection, in the terminology that Moses uses it, that God will circumcise the foreskin of our heart. We won't have that inkling, that inclination, that desire to materialism, or that craving to things which are just temporary. We will have an interest in only one, things of spirituality, things of greatness, things of happiness. As Moshe continues to tell the Jewish people about the blessings that we receive, but Moshe reminds them, it is only through our diligence and steadfast obligations and realization that we commit ourselves to the teachings of the Torah, that this will create this unbelievable blessing in our life. One may suggest, how am I supposed to be able to relate to the Torah? The Torah is something foreign, it's deep, it's hard. I've never studied it before. And Moshe reminds the Jewish people that the words of the Torah and the relationship that we have with God is not something which is in the heavens that you need to get ladders to climb. It is not across the sea that you need to get a ship to sail to. It is right there. He takes a word, he uses the terminology, he says the word of God is close to you, in your heart, in your mouth, and in your action. Thought, speech, and action. We can take our thought, speech, and action and generate a true cultivation and appreciation for godliness. It is this phrase that the first Chabad Rebbe, in his magnum opus of the Tanya, bases it on and teaches us that every single Jew, regardless of who he is, has a relationship with God. No matter what happens in their life, they have a relationship with God. Not only do they have a relationship, but they can cultivate that relationship. They can expand that relationship. Why? Because every single Jew inherently has that relationship. You're born with that relationship that says that I want and have a desire for God. At times, it gets covered by many different things that doesn't allow us to express it. But it is there. And with enough digging, with enough shock, we will come and appreciate and have that relationship. Moshe tells the Jewish people, the choices are clear. The choices are bright as day. We see what is there, whether it may be from light to dark, from good to evil. And what you must choose is life, as he continues to tell them. What does it mean to choose life? To love God, to follow what he tells you to do, and to cleave to God. Because that is the recipe for you to stay around and to be on this world, not only in this world, but truly enjoying what the soul and body can do as a total unit, as one unit. Moshe then continues in the second Torah reading of this week's Torah reading, which was actually said on the day of Moshe's passing. Moshe is now 120 years old. He tells the Jewish people, I've now become old. I'm no longer able to lead you. And actually, the commentaries learn from this that until Moshe's 120th birthday, he was a strong, nothing, no weakness to him. He didn't even have nothing of any sort. Did you able to see that he was a person of 120? But on this day, all of a sudden, he felt his strength beginning to deteriorate. And he says, here I am. I'm going to appoint Yoshua, who is going to be the successor. He will be the one to bring you into the land of Israel. Don't you worry. Just like God helped us and we were able to conquer the nations of the world before us, so too we'll be able to conquer the nations as you enter the land of Israel with Yeshua as your leader. Not before the succession does he still continue with two more mitzvahs that he tells the Jewish people, Number one, he gives them a Torah scroll. He wrote a Torah scroll for every single tribe. Number two, he tells them about the mitzvah of Hakel. That was every 8 years or every 8th year, which was technically every 7 years, that all the Jewish people, men, women, and children, would gather for the festival of Sukkot, where the king would then go into the special women's gallery, where they set a big, massive podium, and that the king would read from his Torah scroll, telling the Jewish people and reminding them of their obligation of following God's commandments, that though there is a king, this king is only of flesh and blood, but the true king who we have to follow is the King of Kings, and to him we have to follow, and to him we should listen. Then Moshe at the point then calls the Jewish people, and he writes, and he gives them the mitzvah of writing a Sefer Torah. That is the 613th commandment. The 613th commandment, which is that every single Jew should have a Sefer Torah. Of course, it is very expensive. We don't own our own Sefer Torah, and therefore we can easily chip in, so to speak, with somebody else. And by purchasing a letter in a Sefer Torah, we then become owners of a Sefer Torah as well. With this, Moshe then calls the Jewish people together, gives them Yoshua his blessing, and gives his honor and his glory to Yoshua. And he tells Yoshua, reminding him, yes, the Jewish people aren't an easy bunch, but you will be able to lead them into the land of Israel, lead them and teach them how to stay to God's Torah and his laws. With that, we'll have a little also concept of a little deeper thought into this week's Torah reading as well. This week's Torah reading is always read the Shabbos before Rosh Hashanah. Moses begins the Torah reading by saying, Atem nitzavim hayom, you're all standing here today, which today, in the metaphoric and also in the involvement of the holidays, refers to today, the special day, the day of Rosh Hashanah. What Moshe was telling the Jewish people, that you are standing today right before Rosh Hashanah. Right before Rosh Hashanah, and I give you the blessing and the ability that you will be able to succeed and be inscribed and sealed in the book of life. But what is the recipe? How do you get there? How do you assure that you are going to be able to be nitzavim? The word nitzavim means standing tall and proud, that you will accomplish this feat, that you know that you're successful in court, is because you're kulchem. You're all standing together. When there's unity amongst Jews, we can accomplish anything. When Moshe then continues to, however, Moshe continues to enumerate that there are wood choppers, there are water carriers, there are leaders, there are policemen. When Moshe says, I recognize that no two Jews, there's three opinions. You speak to a Jew, you tell him, Shalom Aleichem. What does the Jew respond? Aleichem Shalom. Of course, he has to disagree. He says it the opposite way around. Why? Because the Jew says, now when we got through our disagreements, now let's work together. Jewish people, by definition, we don't always agree. But when Moshe says, you may have all different characters, you may have all different disagreements, but kulchem, you stand together in unison, in the mission, undivided, then you know that it can be nitzavim, you can be successful to be able to know that God will bless you and win a wonderful year. This week as well is the month of Tishrei is blessed. As you know, in the synagogue, every single week that we bless the upcoming month, and when we bless the upcoming month, there's a special blessing that's said in the synagogue. This week, there won't be a blessing in the synagogue, and instead, God blesses the month of Tishrei, and with that, we are able to bless the upcoming months. It is because the blessing of God that we have, that we know that we will be successful in the verdict which is going to be on Rosh Hashanah. On Rosh Hashanah, it's the day of judgment. It's a day when all people come in front of God and he judges every single one, what should be, how it should be, and when it should be. And on Rosh Hashanah, we come together and we know that as one people we stand united, that we will be victorious and we will be signed and sealed in the book of life. But Moshe reminds us, again, stand proud, stand tall, but stand together. With this, my friends, I wish you all a wonderful Shabbos. Let us stand proud. Let us stand tall, ready to accept that God will sign and seal the book of life for all of us in a year of happiness and a year of health. Like we say in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah, let a year of its curses end, and let the year and its blessings begin. God bless you. Have a good Shabbos. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again on Monday at 1 p.m. Good Shabbos candlelighting tonight, is at 6:49 p.m. in Quorum. Don't forget to light your candles. Think of your loved ones. Think of those in the world to come and those things in the world, those that are here. Think of a blessing for all those around you. Think of a blessing for every single Jew. Stand united, and we will all be blessed united. God bless you, and a good Shabbos.
Schrecken sie. Nein, die Welt, ist das schon